Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the new report out highlighting some problems for British manufacturing caused by delays in exporting goods since Brexit, which actually came as a bit of a surprise really. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So when we talk about the impact of Brexit on our economy, there's a lot of discussion essentially centering around plant and animal products. That's because, largely for health reasons, there are a lot of rules restricting their export. This has meant widespread and severe impacts for businesses within this sector. We talk a lot about fishing specifically because most of that industry has been really badly affected, with some parts being completely clobbered. But what also makes it newsworthy is that was the industry that was supposed to be the big winner in Brexit. But, you know, fishing only contributes a fraction of a percent to our economy. Some will argue, sure enough, absolutely. Then we can talk about the export of other animal products, plant products. I mean, we've had tons of meat, for example, rotting at the border because we couldn't export it in time. The same with like fruit, veg. I mean, the whole of agriculture only contributes a small amount to the UK economy as well. It's just 0.6%. Sure, but the thing is, we're not talking about a situation where a minority of our economy has been hit by Brexit, but the rest is either on a level footing or even improving. As far as I can tell, all sectors of our economy are suffering very, very badly from Brexit-related harm. And in terms of things that contribute a lot to our economy, I mean, we're a service economy. That wasn't covered in the deal really to any degree at all. But to highlight the wider Brexit harm, there's a report from the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply just come out, and it's showing that manufacturing has been depressed a bit because of disruptions to the supply chain since Brexit. Now, manufacturing makes up 17.4% of our GDP, and so it should be really fairly well protected against the worst impacts of Brexit. Unlike the services sector, which is 71% of our GDP, for all the talk of fishing being the big winner of Brexit last year, like I said, that was always rubbish. I mean, that was clear rubbish. It's not just that Boris Johnson didn't get a good deal for fishing. This deal was for manufacturers, and that's all it could ever be. Given the government's red lines on Brexit, all they could get was a deal for manufacturers. They barely even talked about services, so the deal could never do anything for the bulk of our economy. It wasn't possible to get a deal that allowed British fishermen to catch substantially more fish, because that comes at the cost of EU fishermen, whilst also being able to sell it competitively in the EU. So anyone in the fishing industry, anyone at all who thought otherwise, I'm afraid to say, is a colossal moron who does not even understand their own industry. I mind less if ordinary members of the public didn't quite get that, but it's very, very important that if you have a political view on your own industry, you've got no excuse for not knowing the facts. Agriculture in general was buggered, but to be fair, the wider industry seemed to cotton on to that long before Brexit itself. Even before the 2019 general election, they were not really all that happy with Brexit. No, this deal was about manufacturing. As such, this is the sector that has the most protection from Brexit. Protection, mind you, not benefit. There's no benefit to manufacturing in the Brexit deal other than compared to other sectors. The benefit is that Brexit doesn't come round to their house and smash them in the face with a cricket bat. It just kicks them in the shins instead. This is a sector where problems due to the coronavirus pandemic make sense. But Brexit should have limited impact. You know, our Brexit deal doesn't do a lot at all really, but it does at least allow for tariff-free trade on most of our manufactured products. And the report was noting that the Brexit deal was seen as a positive for the sector. Yeah, I absolutely get that. That was the sector that breathed a huge sigh of relief more than any other. Actually, the financial markets also breathed a bit of a sigh of relief. I'm not quite sure why. But, you know, for the manufacturing, it removed a lot of the uncertainty. So you read through various sections of this report, And it really looks like one that's of an industry that is mostly focused on recovering from the impact of the pandemic. Because as I say, that's what has hit manufacturing. There are some sectors of our economy that were badly hit by the pandemic, but shouldn't be that badly hit by Brexit, for example. So for, notwithstanding what I discussed yesterday, was it the day before? I think it was yesterday. Generally speaking, things like hospitality shouldn't be that badly affected by Brexit, but it was badly affected by the pandemic. Same with manufacturing, badly affected by the pandemic, shouldn't be really that badly affected by Brexit. Whereas then you have other sectors which are badly affected by Brexit, but maybe weren't that badly affected by the pandemic. In other words, if you've got a business, if one didn't hit you, the other one does. And it was said throughout most of last year, this combination of Brexit and COVID is going to hit our economy hard. Because, like I said, the sectors which might be largely shielded from the impact of COVID would be hit by Brexit and vice versa. So the general outlook for the sector is positive. For manufacturing in Britain, the general outlook, you look at this report, it's quite positive due to the COVID restrictions being eased, very soon. And I cannot emphasize this enough. This is a part of our economy that was not supposed to be clobbered hard by Brexit. Yeah, a few examples. Car manufacturing, of course, where rules of origin is a serious issue. Bear in mind, it's been doing the rounds again recently. The video of Sir Patrick Minford, which I remember I might actually put a link in the description below. He's been an economic advisor for the Conservatives for like decades. And this video is explaining to ministers that in the event of Brexit, if we leave the EU, it's going to be in the government's interest, he said. It's in their interest to run down the car manufacturing industry, the whole industry, just wind it down. And he said, in exactly the same way that the government that he also advised, Thatcher's government in the 80s, wound down other industries in the 80s. Car manufacturing is a part of the manufacturing industry that has been clobbered, but generally speaking, we have a deal that allows for the import of raw materials and the export of manufactured products. But then you see in this report, amongst the overall levels of optimism centred around the improving coronavirus situation, concerns over Brexit. The twin problems facing manufacturing when you take the pandemic out of the equation, which has the bulk of the effect, is costs and delays. Delays caused by the mountain of bureaucracy now needed with Brexit and delays due to checks, problems with transport, that sort of thing. And as someone interested in maths, there was an incredibly interesting feature within the report. So there's this measure called the Purchasing Managers Index. And it rose in February compared to January. That's considered a good thing. It rose from 54.1 to 55.1. Essentially, anything over 50 represents economic growth in that sector. So the fact that it is not only over 50, but also increasing, should be good news, shouldn't it? I mean, that indicates that Brexit isn't causing enough problems to prevent growth, surely. Well, not quite. Here's the problem. This is the fascinating bit. Because it seems that Brexit represents a set of parameters not built into the original model. The value is increasing due to long production lead times. The time it takes from an order going in to customer getting it. Now, this generally, when it's high, generally represents a healthy outlook for the sector because it means manufacturers are struggling to meet demand. They've got lots of customers putting in lots of orders, and that's why the lead times are longer. It's like, in other words, they've got a lot of requests of work coming in, production times are longer due to the queue of other customers ahead of you. That represents a healthy industry because they're not scratching around waiting for the phone to ring for an order to come through. However, the longer lead times that we have now is not because of the lots of demand and we can't keep up with it, but because of it's taking so long to ship the products to the customers. So the index, which would normally look like a positive, is actually not so much a big problem, but it is overinflated. Basically, Brexit has rendered this index unfit for purpose at the moment. nice reminder, of course, of how important it is to understand what makes up statistical data rather than just looking at a value, because there'll be any number of people who are familiar with that value, which wasn't me, would look at it and go, oh, it's over 50. Oh, and it's increasing. Oh, that's good. And leave it at that. No, you've got to look at what's causing it. Now, the report does say that orders have increased a little in February, based on January when it was suppressed anyway. So what we appear to have here is an expectation of growth in the sector. The sector is not like a lot of other sectors that's expecting decline, contraction. They're expecting growth, which is good. Brexit hasn't killed this one off, sure, but of course it wasn't supposed to. The deal was supposed to protect it. But here's the thing. They're also saying that the growth is lower than it would have been without these Brexit complications. So Brexit has negatively impacted on our manufacturing industry, which will therefore have a knock-on effect for jobs and tax receipts. Because even if there's growth, and therefore you'd be saying there won't be a net loss of jobs from these sectors, I mean, net loss, there will be some parts where there are and some parts maybe where they take on staff. There won't be a net. But if there isn't as much, where there's growth, there's the potential for more jobs to come online. By definition, where you have less growth, then there's going to be fewer new jobs created. That's what that knock-on effect is in terms of what matters for us for the economy. And when we've already got very high unemployment, we had, unemployment anyway, and then that unemployment has become much higher due to the pandemic, and it hasn't finished yet. We'll have to wait and see what happens with the budget, which at the point at which I'm doing this video, or the point at which you're watching it, will it have come out yet? It will have come out. But either way, the problems highlighted here to do with Brexit are not teething problems. Yes, as with all other importers and exporters, they're going to get better at filling in the paperwork. That will save time. But all that does is reduce errors that prevent the successful export of the goods. The paperwork isn't going away. The paperwork will still have to be filled in, and you'll still have to fill in as much paperwork. It's not like we've got a load of paperwork now and we're going to sort of make that more efficient. No. That means people need to be paid to fill it in, adding cost to the business. Doesn't matter whether that business employs people to do it for them or whether it outsources it, they have to pay to have it done. Also consider that the report also highlighted the problems of transport supply. Now, if they're struggling to access haulage now, what's it going to be like when production steps up with the expectation of eased pandemic restrictions? Remember, their forecast is for growth. As the restrictions are eased, we should be able to increase, we'll have increased demands for our products, we'll be able to increase supply. What happens when the UK government imposes full import controls in July? So we have more production, so we have more need of transport, which we're already struggling with, then full import controls in July, indirectly causing further delays in haulage, meaning it could take even longer to get products to the customers. And if the delays in shipping have already contributed to this purchasing managers index, showing a value that's supposed to be good but has then been artificially inflated, how much more so when the pressure on transport is even greater? But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.